As Israel fights against foes on all sides, like Hamas and Gaza, what perspectives are we not seeing on our newsfeed? Well, Messianic IDF company commander Mati Shoshani is here to expose truths and realities that you simply will not find in the mainstream news. So, Mati, when you turn on the international news about this conflict and you see what's being reported, what does it make you feel?
Well, most of the time angry, if I'm being honest. And the reason for that is I feel like news is flawed in its core. The news cycle is daily and it changes on a very, very rapid basis. And you don't really get the full story just by one day's news. And I'd say what myself, my team, the good people we work with, we try to do is tell a story that's more complex than that, that is more nuanced than just what happened today. I'd also say there's something else. It's something that I've sort of come to the realization of during this war, which is I think most people imagine, myself included, by the way, before October 7th, 2023, that the middle lies somewhere the truth lies in the middle, as in there's this, let's say there's CNN on one side and there's name another one, CBN News on the other side. And the truth lies somewhere in the middle because each one has a perspective. And what I think I've come to the conclusion of, and many other people have too, is that that's simply not the case. This war that we're fighting is, especially in the media, is a war that has malicious players in it. People who are happy, people who are prone, people who desire to twist the truth. And when you look at reality from that perspective, it really changed the way I look at it. And for many other people, I think it did too. And there's the good side of that is it woke people up to the fact that if they don't speak up, someone else is going to fill the void of information. So in that sense, I think that's, so the shortness of how quick stories are, where you really need depth to understand the long-term processes. And the second part of it is the fact that there are malicious players and there are truthful players, and you have to be able to decipher the two.
But Mati, I think you have such an interesting perspective as a messianic, a follower of Yeshua, a follower of Jesus, IDF company commander who's spent a lot of time in Gaza. Now your company is based in Judea. You've seen the breadth of what actually happens up close, personal. So when you see, let me ask you this: is there an example or two of things you've seen said or reported in the international news that you have had firsthand experience thinking to yourself, that's just not actually the truth?
Yeah, I think the big thing people miss, people like to say the Israeli army, the IDF, is the most, we say the most virtuous or most humane army in the world, which is tricky to say about an army. But I'll tell you that my criticism about the military, different organizations as they communicate externally, is that they're not clear enough about how much effort we go to in protecting our enemies and the Palestinian people. And I need to say this isn't propaganda. This isn't something that we like to wave a flag of like, look, we're nicer armies than other armies. The IDF puts soldiers' life in danger on a daily basis to prevent harm to innocent people on the other side. While we're waging a full-on war against enemies who are willing to do anything, including booby trap, children, elderly in wheelchairs. I mean, they're willing to do anything to cause death to our side. We put our lives at danger to protect our enemy population. I mean, that is to the extent we go to. And not only that, I've spent, hundreds of days at this point in Judea and Samaria in this war. And it is so clear how much the army and our Israeli government are cautious about anything related to land, property, and the people of the Palestinian population of Judea and Samaria. One anecdote, last week, I don't know if this made international news, there was a tiny vandalism incident in a command that's one south of where I'm stationed in the army, in the Hebron area. And in that area, a handful of soldiers, like 5 or 6 soldiers, vandalized one piece of property that belonged to Palestinians. And you know who showed up to debrief the incident? The Israeli chief of staff. The Israeli chief of staff, who commands hundreds of thousands of people, cleared his schedule to travel to one of the commands in Judea and Samaria to sit in the debrief of this event, to make a public statement of, we want everyone to know in Israel, this is internal, everyone to know that this isn't how we behave in the Israeli army. The most tiny infraction of the military code of honor is enough to get the Israeli chief of staff to intervene. Another example, I don't know if you were following this, at the end of March, there was an incident that's still being investigated that has to do with, it's not Red Cross, it's Red Crescent workers in Gaza, where they're claiming that people were killed by IDF soldiers intentionally. I sat on a briefing on that topic last night. By the way, one of my younger brothers, the smart one in our family, is the international spokesperson for the IDF. And the levels of intensity in which the IDF investigates these kind of things, even when there's suspicion of the smallest event that is incorrect according to our values, is thoroughly investigated every single time. And I think people around the world love throwing around these big statements. The
Yeah.
IDF shoots civilians, the IDF hurts kids. Nonsense. We do exactly the opposite of that. We do everything in our power, day in and day out, to protect the population of a country that, or an entity that's trying to kill us.
And I think your perspective is just so invaluable. And I know the comments on YouTube. I've seen them whenever we talk about Israel. Whenever there's something in the title about IDF or whatever, the comments will come, and these exact same words will come out, which is genocide, which is you aid killers, which is all these platitudes. And then people say, well, even if they're just 40, 50,000 people killed, like how can you celebrate this kind of thing? And so I just want to give you, maybe on this last question, specifically as a follower of Jesus, right? How would let's say those people that kind of hide behind the keyboard were actually having a conversation with you over a cup of coffee, and you could explain to them why their statements are simply incoherent. What would you do if you could actually talk to the people that make those kind of comments?
Wow, that is a really good question. I need to think about that for a second. So I've spent, it's been almost a year and a half of this war. I think my biggest takeaway from this whole thing is to question the emotional, the spiritual place that you're coming at the conversation from. And if your point is to be hateful and your point is to prove that you're right and everyone else is wrong, it's not worth engaging with you in that conversation. But if someone truly seeks to know what is happening here and is trying to position their heart, position their mind around the events in this place, I can understand having compassion for any side in this conflict. You can care deeply about the Jewish people that were suffering from this war, and I personally, I think everyone should care about every Palestinian, every Gazan, child, woman, man that is innocent, that was even harmed or lost anything in this conflict. And I think the way to come at this is be true to the facts, as in truly understand what happened. And secondly, and most importantly, as a follower of Christ, have compassion and love for every person. And when you have compassion and love for every person, have a truthful conversation about what's truly happening. And when you have that conversation, it is evident, it's clear, there's no debate over the fact that Hamas is evil, that Israel is led by people that strive for life and the protection of life and don't pursue death. And when you look at that in that way, you can have a much more honest and deep conversation. But again, this is always, you go into these deep like bunny trails of, what exactly happened here, what exactly happened there. Forget that for a second. Get your mind and your heart in the right place. And the right place is understand godly justice and biblical perspective. And yet at the same time, don't lose compassion and love for every single person. I think that's where you're supposed to start these conversations.
Mati Shoshani, my friend, Mati of CBN Israel, Toda Rabba, achi. Love you so much, my brother.
Thank you, Raj.